Welcome to Retire Coast, where we discuss all things retirement, life on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and your financial welfare. Bill Anderson, your host, is a serial entrepreneur having created many successful businesses and holds a real estate broker's license, speaks about personal experiences with each topic. Listen, learn, and improve the quality of your life.
Well, thanks again for coming to Retire Coast. This is Bill Anderson, and I'm on with my brother, Dick Anderson, and we're going to talk to you about something we know a lot about, and that is retirement programs and what you can do to help your kids kind of learn a little bit more about what to do to plan for retirement and how you might be able to improve your own. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened in the U.S. over the last 30, 40, 50 years regarding retirement, because a lot of younger people that may be listening don't have any idea about what used to be out there, what some of the people that are in the baby boomer generation are taking place. So anyway, Dick, back in the day when we started working after we both left the Air Force, I had a job working for a company that had a full benefit plan, what they call a defined benefit plan. And that meant that I was going to get a pension, a real pension, once I retired. And you started out the same way, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, certainly did.
So you started out with a Union Pacific Railroad, which our whole family pretty much worked for, and everybody was taken care of. Our parents, talk a little bit about mom and dad's retirement.
Well, basically, defined benefit, probably ought to talk about what that is. A defined benefit is an amount you get in retirement that basically continues until you pass away, where many other retirement plans vary. They may just be a 401k or some amount of money that is only good for a set number of years, or comes in at a defined, or not defined, but a certain set amount of money. But once my benefit was set, it's set for life.
Good, and not many of those plans are around. As a matter of fact, if you want to be sure to find one, go to work for a public agency. Most public agencies, including the U.S. government, state agencies, a lot of cities and counties, have continued with the defined benefit plan, which means that when you retire, you're guaranteed X dollars. Now, did your plan, Dick, have any type of escalator clause or cost of living or anything else with it?
No. Well, I need to back up. I actually am fortunate. I have two parts of my retirement. I was in management, so I get a management pension, which is the defined benefit. That's the amount, and it's set when you retire, and it never goes up. It's whatever you get when you retire. It stays that way for the rest of your life with no upward adjustments. In the railroad, though, you have what's called Tier 1 and Tier 2 benefits. Tier 1 is equal basically to standard Social Security. That, of course, is adjusted based on any annual adjustment given by Social Security Administration. Tier 2 is an amount equal to basically 5% more than Social Security that you pay in the life of while you're working. And that's adjusted also based on the percentage of change that Social Security gets.
And just for everyone that's listening, the Railroad Retirement Board, which was created well over 100 years ago by the U.S. Congress, recognized the need to control the railroads in many ways, not just the income that the employees are earning. So they set up the Railroad Retirement Board, and that set up this retirement program that Dick was just talking about that's entirely unique in the United States. I'm not sure that there are any other industries that have this. And so what he's saying basically is that instead of getting a Social Security benefit like most of us get, they were getting that included in their retirement program, and where the rest of us would get Social Security. Now, the railroad did add a 401k program late in your time there, didn't they?
Yeah, that's correct, and they match it at 50 cents on each dollar, and that is still there uh, and still in place. So that would be an additional supplemental benefit to my retirement.
And I had a great retirement program for the companies that I worked for, all up until the time I decided to go into business for myself. And those programs were very similar to a Dick's program, where they would pay a fixed amount. I have one of those, one for a shorter period of time, just for 10 years. And that pays the same amount, and it'll pay the same amount until I pass away. So if you start taking at age 65 and you're taking at age 95, it's the same amount as when you went to 65. But most people don't have access to these kinds of plans, except if, as I said, if you're working for the government. Basically, that's kind of where this is left. And while the railroad has a defined benefit plan, it's not like it used to be, or many other places either. Which brings me to talking about what had happened. So, Dick, give us a little bit of explanation of how the railroad plan has morphed, which is an indicator of almost all of American industry. All of them back in the 50s, pretty much everybody had a defined benefit plan, and then now hardly anybody has it. So Dick will explain to you the transition that the railroad went through, and that's the transition that most companies have gone through. And for you older folks that are listening, you went through that as well.
Yeah, the railroad retirement, I might mention also, while Tier 1 benefit is equal Social Security, the railroad retirement program is 100% independent of Social Security. It is a totally run retirement plan, totally separate from Social Security itself. And the rail industry has tried to change their plan. The federal government has tried to acquire the assets of railroad retirement and put it into Social Security because Social Security is in such bad condition. So far, thank God that hasn't happened, and it's still remained by itself. But in the government or the railroad plan, one of my benefits, because of my management position, is my wife receives a what they call a spousal benefit, which is about 25% of my company pension in addition to my company pension. The railroad has now eliminated that benefit. Those that started about, I think it was 10 years ago, no longer get that benefit as a future retirement benefit. It's gone in order for the railroad to reduce their cost. The company has tried for years to get their hands on the money in the company pension plan, and I'm talking about the one for management personnel like myself. It has been funded in perpetuity for the last 20 years. For those that may not understand what that means, it means that there was enough money in the plan 20 years ago to more than pay for the ongoing yearly deductions from the plan due to the huge amount of money, the balances, and the interest that it was accruing from the investments in the plan itself. So there's, I believe, over $1 billion in the plan for like 20,000 non-agreement employees. So it's got a lot of money, but it would take an act of Congress for the company to access that money, and thank God that hasn't happened.
Well, one other thing that I'm aware of is that you talk about great benefits that went away at one time with the railroads, and that's all the railroads, not just the one Dick worked for. If there were two spouses that worked for the same railroad, and each one had a qualified benefit, they would basically be able to create a third one, essentially, by each one paying for the other. So two individuals retiring would end up with three benefits. That is amazing to me, and that is also gone for any new employees.
Yeah, that benefit terminated with any employee hired after 1973. And our sister, of course, gets that benefit with her husband, who was also a railroad employee. And usually you hear the term double dipping. So they both are able to get it for each other. But again, it was a great benefit, and it was eliminated for anybody starting after 73.
So basically, today, Dick, if somebody was hired by any railroad, what would they get today?
Well, if you're just hiring in on a union job, then you get rated retirement. You get the two levels, which is level one to level two, and that's what you'd receive. If you ended up in management during your career, then you would be eligible for the company pension. But the pension itself has been geared back more than it ever had before. There used to be stock options, but those have been gone for like 10 or 15 years now.
So are the pensions as generous now with someone that would start, say, today than they were maybe 10 years ago?
Well, the company pension is based on a convoluted formula that nobody understands. It's not unlike Social Security. But that benefit is still basically the same as it was, but it has not been increased, even though the fund has a huge amount of money in it. The company has not increased any retirement benefits probably in over 20 or 30 years. So that still remains the same as it was, but it's still a very attractive benefit if you're in management.
Well, there are a number of companies that wanted to literally dump their defined benefit programs. And what they have done is come up with a plan to offer to the employees the opportunity to either roll the money into an annuity, some type of annuity, or actually give them a cash payout. And over the years, I know Dick knows some people that this happened to, and I do too. I know some that actually took the cash payout, and they were very large amounts of money. We're talking 50, 75, $100,000 or possibly more. And for many people, they've never had this much money in their life. And too bad that many of them just spent that money, did not put it into any type of annuity or investment program to help themselves out. So by and large, that company transitioned down to a 401k plan with a contribution, and those people that did not take care of their money are out and have really almost nothing for retirement. Now, that's not the company's fault, that's the individual's fault. But one of the reasons that we have these types of retirement programs is because people can't easily get their hands on the money. It takes requesting it and asking for it. And they can probably tell you just with the railroad plan, even to get started on it, or it gets, how about just getting started taking your Social Security? That's a process you have to go through. So all of that is really intended to make sure that people don't frivolously just waste their money. So that brings us to today. And most of our family members, we have a lot of nieces and nephews that are all working and have pretty good jobs and careers. But except for the members of the family that are working for public agencies, they're not drawing any type of defined benefit plans, so they have essentially a 401k. And we don't know, Dick and I don't know if they're contributing to the 401ks or not. Some have said that they have. But what I'm saying is, it goes from our parents' generation who retired with defined benefit plans. They knew they had this money coming in every single month, rain or shine. No problem with Social Security. They would get that check on top of it or as a supplement. And then that transitioned into what Dick's got. And now we're transitioning, we've been doing this for about 20, 25 years, out of the a really good, solid retirement plan into plans that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of. And Dick can probably tell you that there are quite a few people out there that aren't contributing to 401ks and that kind of thing. And we see this with younger folks out there. Don't you agree?
Yeah, oh yeah, very much so. In fact, a very good friend of mine, when he retired about the same time I did, you had an option in your company retirement plan to either take it over your lifetime or take a large lump sum, like you had mentioned earlier. He unfortunately took the lump sum. He invested in high tech, and it was at the time when the tech bubble burst, and he lost his entire retirement amount as a result of that. So that was a real loss, real shame.
And he's not the only one. There are a lot of people who have lost the money, whether they made bad investments or they went to Las Vegas and gambled their way. They are ending up with almost nothing for retirement. And so Dick and I talk a lot, so with our sister as well, about the shape of the millennials and the other folks that are behind them in the generational gap, and even the Xers, and where they're at with retirement. And it's not really looking that good, other than the ones that have a retirement plan, as I said, with the government. So we have some relatives that are teachers that have good retirement plans coming up for them. But that doesn't mean that everybody has a good retirement plan, and it takes some thinking and planning. So, I mean, even with our plans, Dick, I sold my company, so that helped me, and I also have a partial plan. But we still had to plan, and we had to look at what it was going to cost us to live where we were. Now we were I was in California, and Dick was in Las Vegas. And we decided to move to Mississippi because we wanted to have a good quality of life, even though we had pretty decent income. But if we stayed if we went to California, a good portion of that, 35 to 40% of our income, would be spent for nothing, get nothing back. That's what the difference in the cost of living is. So Dick likes to tell some of the stories about what he encountered when he came out here. Go ahead and give us one or two.
Well, the economics are just uncomparable to the West Coast and the bigger cities in the East. You just mentioned a 40% reduction. That's absolutely true. And I could go into detail, but you could, with the exception of vehicle registration, every other single cost from utilities to taxes, etc., is significantly less. Probably one single big one I'd share is in Las Vegas during the summer. Obviously, it's very hot. Air conditioning is on 24/7. And here on the Mississippi coast during the summer, it is also. However, in Las Vegas, it would cost me $400 a month for electricity. I've never paid over $200 a month here in Mississippi for the same 24/7 use of electricity. And I have a bigger house here than I had in Nevada.
Well, and then the water situation too. Our water bills are less expensive. Our food is less expensive, and you can pretty much go down the list, right? Most things are less expensive, and for someone that's going to retire, uh, a lot of people don't think. They just say, "Well, it's going to cost me all this. What am I going to do?" We thought about this. Dick and I both thought, "Well, what are we going to do?" And we thought, well, let's move someplace we don't have to spend as much money, but we still have a high quality of life, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You mentioned water. In Las Vegas, they've had a shortage for 20 years because of the snowfall in the western side of the Colorado mountains just aren't supplying the lake there, and water bills are huge. If the water's available, you move to Mississippi and it's mandatory, and I say mandatory, that you have to have grass in the state. There's plenty of water, so that by itself kind of blew me away.
That's true. Yes, we love our lawns here. It's something I moved from Southern California, and boy, they just they'll fine you if you have a green lawn. Basically, that's how they tell if you're using too much water. I mean, they also had the water meters, but the water cost was horrendous, and people would shame you. I mean, the neighbors started putting in, fake grass and that kind of thing, which, we grew up with lawns in Southern California, and it was nice. And but both Dick and I lived in other states through our travels with our companies and in our career, and we like things that are green and grass. The desert landscaping in Las Vegas has its appeals, but you can't beat having a nice lawn. And you need to see Dick's lawn in the wintertime when everybody else's is dead and his is the greenest lawn on the street. Really stands out. But we enjoy our lawns and we can afford it because the cost of water is low here. Plus, we don't have to worry about the conservation kind of thing with it. We get plenty of rain. We don't get too much rain. We get enough rain, keeps everything green most of the time. But my point here was that, there's two ways to have a good retirement. Either make more money or spend less. I mean, that's it. There's just two. I guess the federal government hasn't learned that yet. They just keep spending. But, we looked at it and said, wow, okay, well, these defined benefit plans that we both have, and even Social Security has a minor increase, we've got basically fixed amounts. And we've got to find a way to live on those and do well without staying in a place that has a constant high increase in property taxes. So, for example, my property taxes went up. They go up every 4 years here in Mississippi as opposed to every year in California. And mine went up about $35 a year. $35 a year for my house. And yours went up, what, Dick, about somewhere similar?
Oh, they went up, I think, $17. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Because just before I left, California, it's an automatic 2% a year. Well, it's 2% on top of 2% on top of 2%, so it just keeps on growing. Well, how do you stay ahead of that? The defined plans that have no increase. Social Security, it's a joke. Going back and looking at the records for the last 20 years, Social Security has not kept up with inflation, particularly that last spate in the last 3 or 4 years where we had the 9%, 10%, and all of that just kind of layered on. So, but getting back to the idea of retirement, we're a little bit concerned that a lot of people out there aren't taking it seriously enough, that they are just pushing it off because they don't know what they're going to do. They aren't saving money. They have life just keeps getting in the way. They've taken on massive student debt. They're supporting multiple family members. They're doing all kinds of things but getting ready for retirement, particularly as they reach their 50s. And
I would add, Bill, to what you're saying, and this is something we try to tell our family members that still live in California to understand. We mentioned earlier in this conversation about a 40% reduction in cost. Well, if we were still living in the West, me in Nevada, you in California, and our income is fixed, no increases to speak of, Social Security gives you nothing. When we moved here, we automatically picked up the 40% buffer on a retirement. In other words, I could live the same way I was in Nevada here when we first moved at a 40% savings. So as costs go up everywhere, including in Mississippi, even though it's a smaller amount, I've got a 40% buffer to use on my fixed income to support increases. In California, you don't.
Yeah, that's right. And there's another thing when it comes to retirement that I know Dick found, but not quite as much as me, because he moved from a state that did not have state income tax. That's really a nice thing in Nevada. I moved from California, which has the highest state income tax in the country at 13%, maybe 14%. And if they ever thought that I had a lot of money, they'd take even more than that. They'd find a way. So basically, the state of Mississippi, and there are a few other states that are similar, they don't charge any state income tax on retirement benefits of any kind, and that includes removing income from 401k plans, all the pension plans, the IRA plans, all those things, zero state income tax. Whereas California will charge taxes on all of those things. Now, California and Nevada don't charge tax on Social Security, but there are states that do. So we moved to a state that has a low tax environment, which also helps. And that's not even that 40% lower cost. That's just more money in our pockets that we don't have to pay a state government. And it's just amazing how we found out. I just wrote an article on retirecoast.com about the cost of state government. Now, Dick, tell them a little story about going to visiting the state capitol.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. We had an appointment to see our local representative in Jackson, which is the capital, of course, of Mississippi. And when we went to go into the Capitol and go through security, basically security guy says, "Oh, come on around here." We didn't even have to empty our pockets or go through a metal detector. It was pretty amazing. And then when we got into the representative's office, we started having a conversation. And I don't remember how we got there, but he ended up telling us that while it is a little unsafe around the Jackson area, that he didn't worry about it because everybody was strapped his term that was in the legislature, including at the time when they're in session. And he made a comment that he never worried even about being strapped because the guy he sits next to was double strapped. I've never heard of such a thing before in my life, but that's Mississippi.
Well, that's why they let us in the door. That was what he was trying to explain to us is why there seemed to be a lack of security downstairs because he pointed it out. He said, didn't see a lot of security around. He said, you don't have to because everybody's carrying a weapon. And it's just in this state, in Mississippi, and I've said this to other people, and I'm not saying this just to draw everybody here. I'm just saying that in some other benefits other than financial is kind of a cultural or psychological side is that this state really looks at people as an adult and says, you're an adult. You have to make adult decisions. So, yeah, you can carry a weapon in Mississippi. Just be smart enough just not to shoot up everybody on the street, which doesn't happen for the vast majority of people here. Now, as Dick mentioned, there's crime here, there's crime everywhere, but it's lower than it is in many other areas. We don't have the big gangs and those kinds of things because it's a smaller area. We live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast here, where it's a great, pleasant place to live, and it's a safe place to live. But there are a lot of things that you can consider about what you're going to do in retirement. One of them is, of course, move to a place you can actually afford to live. The other is that even if you can afford to live there, isn't it a nice place to live? Can you do what you want to do here? For example, we can go to the beach 24/7 here. We couldn't do that in California. At sunset, you're off the beach because, the nanny state has to tell you what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And we just don't have a lot of that here. And again, Mississippi is not the only state that's like this. There are some other great states in this country that also will treat you as an adult, and your cost of living will be a lot lower than where you probably are living now if you're in New York or in, Washington State or Illinois someplace. But anyway, so we kind of covered a lot of things here. Dick has always got something to say, and we left the politics out, by the way. We didn't talk about any of that, which we're not going to on this show. We don't really get into that. There's plenty of that on TV if you watch Fox or CNN. We like to see the end results, and the end results are less government, let people live, put more money in our pockets, those kind of things, and that's where we live now. So if you're considering retiring, start planning now for that purpose, years in advance, which we did. But also, if you have children, you have Gen X children, it's time to start talking to them about retirement. Dick, I know you've talked to your grandson about it, right?
Yeah. Yes, he's considered, once he determines what life he's going to end up doing, even considered coming down here to retire, which is which would be fine. We'd love to have them.
And you were talking about a 401k plan, which is great for grandparents to set up for grandchildren. I did it. You did it, right?
Yeah, we're getting ready to set up a Roth IRA for him as we speak, even.
Yeah. So you can do something for your grandchildren, maybe your children, to help them kind of start focusing on retirement. And the key thing is that you've got to start putting money away for that. If you don't have one of these other plans that we talked about, defined benefit plan, the 401k, well, that's great. Pack it in, put as much as you can in, but that by itself may not be enough unless you keep working and you're getting paid a pretty good income. That way you push that Social Security benefit as far to the top as you can get. And so don't just lounge around and think, yeah, well, I'll get a job next week. Remember, every year that you pay into Social Security, you're going to get that benefit down the road. Well, you have anything else in closing, Dick?
I think that pretty much for now covers the issues we wanted to discuss.
All right, good. Well, please take a look at our blog at retirecoast.com. There's a lot of articles in there about all these things we talked about here, and we continue to load them up. The first part of the year, we put a lot more in about taxes. So thanks for coming in and listening to us, and come back to our podcast.